So he didn't have to wrestle with his conscience. For him, it was just a matter of convenience. And the lesson is, when your freedom depends on somebody who doesn't value freedom, it's precarious. You might lose it just because he thinks something else is more convenient or more successful or more profitable or whatever. Freedom is only secure when it's defended by people who demand freedom. Well, we couldn't, when we found out about this problem in Linux, we couldn't use Torvalds' version of Linux. We can't distribute non-free programs to people. So we had to go through Linux and remove the non-free pieces, which are called binary blobs, by the way. And typically they are firmware programs. They don't run in the central processor. They run in some other processor. And Torvalds convinced himself that that makes them okay. But we don't think they're okay. So we have to make a modified version of Linux, which doesn't have the blobs. And we call this Linux Libre, using the Spanish word, or if you prefer, French word in English. And it's easy to do this because we have a script that goes through and removes the blobs. So every time Torvalds releases a new version, we run the deblobber script and we release the new version. It's not hard work, and it produces something that's free software that we can ethically distribute. It does not achieve replacing the blobs with free software. That is a much bigger job. The fact is, there are some devices, some peripherals, that can't be used in the free world today because we don't know how to run them. That's a fact. You can either show this and admit it, as we do, or you can hide it, as Torvalds does. But either way, you're not running that device in freedom. So what you see, and these are not the only examples, but I won't give more, what you see is that our future depends above all on what we value. If we value freedom, then we can hold on to it. If we don't value it, we'll lose it. Because of this, it's not enough just to give people freedom. If we could magically make free software to do everything today, we could hand it out to people, and tomorrow they could all have freedom, except for the ones whose computers are tyrants and don't allow the users to replace the software. And this is quite a problem nowadays. Many devices, not just Apple and Microsoft devices, but even many Android devices are tyrants and won't let people replace the software. But aside from that, everybody could have freedom tomorrow. But would they still have freedom in 5 years? Only if they care enough to hold on to it. And that's why a crucial part of the free software movement is spreading the idea of freedom. What I'm doing in this talk. We must, to establish lasting freedom, we must teach people to value freedom. And we need your help in that. Especially because nowadays, you can run non-free programs without even knowing that they're installed in your computer. Many web pages contain software written in JavaScript, and usually that software is not free. And lots of people who would refuse to install a non-free program on their computer, or at least would hesitate a lot before they did, they run these web pages and they don't know that they're installing non-free programs on their computer because it goes into the browser and the browser doesn't warn you. So we made a change so it will warn you. We have a program called Libre.js, which checks the JavaScript in a web page and the other files it refers to also, and checks whether it's non-trivial and non-free. And in that case, it refuses to run it, and it warns you this page has non-free, non-trivial JavaScript. It also has a heuristic feature to find where to send a complaint, so that you can complain to the webmasters and say, you shouldn't make people run this non-free JavaScript, and I couldn't use your site. It's very important to complain. We've got to put pressure on them to change. In addition, you can lose control of your computing without running a non-free program. There's a new way they can take away your control of your computing, which we call software as a service, or SaaS. And the way this works is, instead of doing your computing by running a program that operates on the data you've got, you send the data to somebody else's server, and there, programs you don't know about operate on the data, and they send you the result. Or they take action directly on your behalf. And this way, you have no control over how that computing is done. It's equivalent to running a non-free program. But it's worse. You see, as I said, some non-free programs have spy features that transmit data about the use of the computer to some server. Well, with software as a service, the user has to send all the pertinent data to the server. But it's the same result. That user's data is in the server, and who knows what that server is going to do with his data. Maybe hand it over to the U.S. government. If it's a U.S. company, that's what it has to do. Hand over all the data to the U.S. government, secretly. So, that's bad too. But in addition, I explained how some non-free programs have universal backdoors that allow someone remotely to change how the user's computing is done without asking the user's approval. For instance, Windows, Google Chrome, and most portable phones have a universal backdoor. Well, with software as a service, the server operator can at any time install different software in the server. It's his computer. He should be able to change the software in it, but the result is to change how the user's computing is done without asking the user's permission. Thus, software as a service is inherently equivalent to running a proprietary program with spy features and a universal backdoor. And the only remedy is don't use it. There is nothing that can be done in that server to give the users individually and collectively control over what that server does. The only way you can control what a server does is if it's your server and you decide what software to run in. Then it's okay. But if it's somebody else's server, you automatically lose control. So the answer is reject software as a service. It's necessary to have freedom. Now, the last topic I want to talk about, and I think I need to sit down. It's too bad. I speak better when I'm standing, but I feel I need to sit down. The last point I want to cover is free software and education. Educational activities, including schools of all levels, and as well as adult education, must teach only free software. And there are 4 reasons for this. The most superficial is to save money. Now, free software is not always gratis. You can buy and sell copies. But it does create an opportunity for the users to save money if they wish to go to an effort to do so. For instance, if the Ministry of Education gets one copy of a free program, it can make a copy for every school and send that copy to the school using Freedom 2. Then the school can install that program in every computer and run it using Freedom 0. So, because they are free to do this, they don't have to pay for permission, so they can save money. And that's good because the schools don't have enough money. They shouldn't waste it on paying for permission to run proprietary software. But this is the most superficial reason. It's the least important. So we should never say it last. We should always say it first, to emphasize that the others are the real reasons. And besides, some proprietary software developers eliminate the possibility of savings by offering gratis copies of their non-free software to schools. Why do they do this? Because they wish to be public benefactors? Not at all. They're trying to use the schools as an instrument to impose dependence on society. Here's how it works. They deliver these gratis copies of the non-free program to the school teaches the students to use it, and the students become dependent. And then they graduate, and they're still dependent. And this developer does not offer them gratis copies after they graduate. Oh no. And some of them get jobs working for companies. The developer does not offer those